Oh, hello, hello, hello. Glad to be back today. Glad to be back. And today we are not doing the radio show because the radio show has been preempted for Notre Dame football. We will be back live on the radio next Saturday, but we wanted to keep this flow going. George, are we good? Looking like we're good. So today we're going to talk about. I've thought about it, and I wanted to discuss because I feel that a lot of times we are defined by other people's thoughts of us, opinions of us, images of us, other people's versions of us. And I want to ask the question, what are you or who are you letting define you? And so we're going to be talking about that today. I think it's perfect timing. Any time to talk about this subject is probably perfect timing. And we're going to be talking about that because I feel like a lot of us are allowing other people to define us. I think we're allowing other people's words and judgments to define us, good, bad, and different, positively, negatively. Sometimes it might not be one extreme or another, somewhere in the gray area. But I feel that a lot of us are not living based on our own personal identity. Okay, so I think that our identity has been there's various different versions of that, and I think that that is something that is important. Is the audio seem pretty good? Okay, cool. So I want to make sure we got audio here. Last thing we want to do is be just talking to a microphone and there's nothing coming out. So I wanted to bring up the reason why I did this last video that just went up earlier, a couple of hours ago. Am I being projected upon? So latest video on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube and this is Facebook, if you can, we'll go on and put the link in the description. But the reason why I created that video, we uploaded that today, is that I feel that many of us are dealing with projection. We're dealing with projection from our loved ones. We're dealing with projection from our significant other. We're dealing with projections from childhood. We're dealing with parental projections. We're dealing with all kinds of stuff. And so these projections could have been when we were growing up. But, the projection concept in this video is really about being projected upon, usually by a spouse or a significant other or somebody that you're living with, because it's hard to get away from that. And if you're constantly being projected on, you might not realize it, because a lot of times you might not be doing what the other person is saying you're doing, but you don't realize that it's projection. Whether you're being told that you're a cheat or a liar, whatever that looks like, or you're lazy or you're selfish or you're mean, whatever that looks like, that projection, most of the time, a lot of us try to react to that. We react because we're trying to defend ourselves. We're trying to prove our innocence. I'm not lazy, or I'm not a mean person. I'm not a selfish person. I try to do things. I'm helping you out. But we're constantly shown, how selfish we are. And that projection, we just don't realize it. We feel like we're just defending ourselves. And a lot of times it can be the other person projecting upon us because that's how they are. Okay. And I know that a lot of people know that example, and that's why I didn't really use it at all in the video. And I spoke about not using it. Is when people say, "Oh well, my spouse is telling me that I'm cheat and I'm not cheating," I feel like I should because I'm already getting in trouble for something I'm not doing. But then a lot of people say, "Well, that could be because your spouse is cheating on you," or because they're fearful that you might be doing what they're doing. And so I didn't use that example at all because it's been so overused. But the projection video. So if you get a chance, watch that video. Let me know your thoughts on it, as well as how you safeguard yourself when you're being projected upon. We all need that information to help us deal with this type of stuff because it takes a village, right? I mean, come on. I have some good ideas, but I know that you have some good ideas. And I just want to make sure that we get as much out to our community and to everybody so that everybody can get the help that they need. To safeguard themselves. But better yet, it goes back to the subject matter of today's show. And it's about being able to see what's defining us. Who are we allowing to define us? How much of other people's ideas, determinations of us, assumptions of us are influencing us and defining us, influencing our subconscious, defining us through our subconscious. It's not like we wake up every day and say, oh, I remember when Aunt so and so or Uncle so and so or said that I was this and that, and I'm gonna live that way for the rest of my life. We don't think about that. We wake up, our subconscious is there. It's running the program in the background, right? It's running the code to run the program. We're not really focused on that. And we don't realize how that can impact our lives as adults. We don't realize how that can impact our lives, all the way through our life, right? And that's the key. And that's something that I really think that we need to think about, is that some of the stuff that was even told to us when we were really young. And I was thinking about like kind of childhood stuff that I took on. And I was thinking about that this morning. And I remember, and you probably have similar stories, you probably have similar thoughts like this. I remember I had two really polar opposite teachers in elementary school between my second and my third grade year. And I remember my second grade teacher, and she was really, really, really amazing. She was one of those people that could bring the best out of you, and there's some amazing teachers out there. And she was one of those, she was one of those that you remember her name, name forever. And I'm sure that you had a teacher like that. And I remember how she kind of ingrained in me, how I was a hard worker, and, how I really tried hard. And, when I put my mind to something, I would excel. And coming out of first grade was tough because I was a big talker. Reckon that, huh? I was a big talker, and a total ADD, ADHD, attention deficit hyper disorder. I mean, total. Okay. And non-medicated. And I remember coming out of first grade, and it was challenging, and then meeting the second grade teacher, and she actually did some tutoring in her house, and it was powerful. It changed my life. But I remember going into third grade. So that was the side of the part where it was like, this is powerful. This is awesome. This person, kind of saw the good or the quality within me, but also brought it out. Even if it wasn't, she said it, and it made me start to think, I am a hard worker. I do work, and I have been that way my whole life. And then I remember my third grade teacher, one of my third grade teachers, and I don't know about you, but we had multiple teachers. And I remember going into the parent teacher conference. They had like the open house, right? And they had the parent teacher conference in there. And I remember we walked into her classroom, and she automatically looked at me like with daggers, you know what I'm saying? And my mom was there with me, and she was like, I'm so glad to meet with you, because Ashley, Ashley's never going to be good at math. She's never going to be good at it. And I remember hearing that. And I remember her saying, we're just going to have to try to, I don't know what we're going to do, but, she's just never going to be good at that. I mean, that's just something we need to figure out. And, it is what it is. And I remember hearing that you're never going to be good enough stuff. And it's interesting. I've worked on this and let go of this, because it took a while to do that, because you got to find these thoughts in the code, right? To be able to let them go. But you have to, you can't just find them and let them go. You have to find them and then analyze, is this a true statement? Is this not a true statement? Can I let this go? And, it was interesting because, growing up, going through obviously the rest of elementary school, middle school, high school. And I remember being in, I think it was calculus. No, it was in geometry. And I remember in geometry, and I remember sometimes when things would get tough, I would go back into the recesses of my brain, and somewhere, I remember I would say, well, I'm just never going to be great at math. I just got to learn that. And I remember being in other math classes, and then being in advanced placement chemistry and stuff like that, where you use math, physics. And I remember reminding myself when I would get like a B on something, well, I'm never going to be good at this. And it's interesting how a lot of us are carrying that through our life, and we don't know it. But the funny thing is that we think these things like we're never going to be good at math, or this is never going to work for me. But we don't really remember where that thought started. Okay. And see, this is why it's interesting. I will not name the guilty. I do remember her name, by the way, from third grade, like it was yesterday. And they all kind of look like those aliens, Men in Black when they show the teachers, they all kind of look like they're from another planet. Not that aliens are just, they did look like they're from another planet. But I remember, though, thinking about that and being able to go back into that and realize where that came from, because otherwise I thought that I just knew innately that I was just horrible at math. And it was funny how it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because I believed that that was my doctrine. I believe that was my reality. And I use this example because I know that we all have examples growing up, going through school, where certain teachers believed in us and certain teachers didn't. Where certain teachers saw the brightness of our ability and certain teachers thought we were just not good. And some of them did not hesitate to say how they felt. I think that going past the teacher concept, what about the family definitions, right? What about the definitions that we hear from our family? Growing up in the household, whether you were raised by a mother, father, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, foster home, foster family, adopted family, one single parent, maybe your sister raised you, maybe your brother raised you. But going through that process was very interesting, right? And I find that we learned a lot growing up. We learned about who we are. We also learned about who we're not. But it was really hard as a kid because we see things as such black and white. As children, we process things extremely black and white. There is no gray, right? As a kid, it wasn't like, oh, well, there's a variable here, and sometimes it's this way, and sometimes it's not. No, it was either great or horrible, right? And it's interesting when people would make comments when you were a kid about you, like what kind of kid you were, right? Or what you excel in, or what you don't excel in, or the list goes on, right? Or you're good this, or you're, some. I think one of the things that really gets young boys is when their father or the male figure tells them that they're just you're uncoordinated. You're uncoordinated. You're not good at sports. You're not good at sports. You're just not ever going to play football. You're not ever going to play sports. And sports isn't everything, but it's like, why do we have to put that down? Why do we have to say that? Why do we have to define somebody like that? And in the beginning, why does a guy have to play sports anyway? You know what I'm saying? It's like we're all trying to fit into this thing, this mold of who we're supposed to be. This mold. I find it interesting with school. Like, sometimes, parents can be, sometimes parents or people that, bring up the kids can be very, very tough. And other kids can be tough. You know how back in school, like in elementary school, middle school, kids can be ruthless. Even in high school, kids can be mean. I mean, really mean. Being made fun of on the playground. I have some friends that I've had since elementary school, middle school. And, I remember, I remember getting in the middle of like some bullying where people were calling people names or making fun of. And that's horrible. And it's interesting, like with the parental upbringing, what you're good at, what you're not, you're a fast runner or you're not, or you're not in athletics, or, English is not your forte, or whatever it looks like. And all that stuff goes with us. All of that stuff comes together and begins to define us. And, I know that there's a lot of folks out there that'll disagree. When I was writing my last book, I remember I had gone through a publishing company and they had provided an editor for me. And the editor, instead of editing like the copy of the book, decided that they were going to edit the content. Not only were they going to edit the content, they were going to tell me what was right and what was wrong. I realized that I had a really great concept for a book when the editor was arguing with me and basically 50-page analysis on various things that obviously in this book had triggered him. I obviously didn't use this publisher and I went on and did my own thing. But I remember reading through that type of stuff, and I remember the argumentation. This is not true. This is this. I can compartmentalize anything. That is not true. You can compartmentalize anger. It doesn't matter what you watch. Your subconscious does not store these things. There's no way. I watch murder and hack 'em up movies all the time, and it never ever gets into my subconscious. All these things that are actually just completely ludicrous. And I remember reading that and I was like, wow, I'm onto something, because you don't argue something unless there's some sort of truth. Sometimes, most of the time, a lot of the time, right? It's like when something really gets under our skin, we have to ask, why does it get under our skin? Because somehow or not, it's getting there, and there's something in there that's making us feel that way. But I remember, like, throughout my life, finding times where I was questioning my reality, questioning who I was, questioning my thought process, questioning my ability. And when you look back at that, and I've worked with quite a few people. One of the things that I've realized is that self-worth, self-esteem, self-value component. And that stuff right there is so important. The value of having that is more valuable than money ever was. Because I found that if we don't have that, and we don't possess that, we don't understand that, well, we second guess ourselves on everything. We can't make decisions. We don't know what to do because we're scared, because we feel we're going to make the wrong decision. And, it's interesting when you go back into the recesses of people's brains to find out where all this began. Most of it began with the fact that mom or dad was like, you can't make a decision to save your life, or you're all over the map, or you're completely confused, or what's wrong with you? Why is it taking you so long? Why are you so slow? I mean, come on, hurry up. Anytime you're doing that to somebody, it stresses the hell out of them. I don't know about you, but have you ever been late for the airport and you got some family member telling you about how you're late already? It's like, I already know. I don't need to know anymore. I'm already going as fast as I can. You telling me I'm late is just stressing me out more. But I find it interesting because we house that stuff, right? We stick it into those hard drives that I call the subconscious, all these hard drives. We got a lot of hard drives here at the office, but we stick it in a hard drive, and we carry these hard drives with us like baggage, right? It's our Louis Vuitton trunks of all the crap that we've absorbed in our life. And, it's interesting because I find that the definitions of self is based on that. And so we have those, the childhood, growing up, the teachers, even in college, you had some professors that positively, really impacted you, adversely impacted you, neutrally impacted you, the family members that raised you, okay? Positively, negatively, adversely, or, neutrally impacted you. And, the friends concept too. Like, we don't realize a lot of times how much our friends are able to define us as well. Okay, so, how, and who are you hanging out with, and how do they see you? Because you can have friends that see you one way completely different. You can have friends that literally are like your cheerleaders. They are great. You're their cheerleader too. We can't have a cheerleader without being one back, right? Because that would not be reciprocal. It would not be reciprocation. So, but at the same point, it's like having that person that's just like, wow. And then you have friends, probably, and I'm using this term interestingly, right? Friends. Then you have some friends that kind of seem to see or find the worst and nitpick on you of the things that you do, or maybe the way you dress, or the way you look, or maybe you don't talk with the best of English diction, or whatever diction, or you're not polished, or whatever. And it's like, a lot of times you're just trying to fit in, but you hear it and you're like, okay, I got to change. I got to make a change. I got to change that. And then that stuff goes into your head too. You don't even remember that it came from your buddy so-and-so telling you something. It just goes in there and ingrains within you. And you're like, gosh, I really need to work on this. I'm not a very good, I'm not a good linguist, or I'm not good in front of public, or whatever it looks like. And I find that we don't really realize where the source was. We just own it. It becomes ours. And it's so black and white. Because I don't think people are just good or bad at something. I think that there's strengths I think we all have our strengths, right? And we got to play to our strengths too. What are our strengths? But in order to know what your strengths are, you actually have to see that you're valuable and realize that there is something that you offer to this world that nobody else offers. And I've talked about this for years, and I've talked about the concept, on the show, been on the show, when the show is on, which is every week, but since 2012. I talk about the concept of having that one thing or multiple things that we do really, really well. Okay. Everybody has those things, those abilities that nobody else has, but you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to recognize it. And it has to be something that's recognized usually just by you. And usually those things, and I've talked about this before, usually those things are the things that we find the most, we question the most about ourselves. Okay, so for example, my voice has always been this way. It's always been this. It's never been higher. It's always been this since, I don't know about coming out of the womb, but, for a long time. And I remember being in elementary school and trying to raise my voice on the phone, calling friends up, come over and play kind of thing. And I would try to raise my voice and they'd be like, "Oh, that was a good try, Ashley." And I remember my mother, when growing up, she was a music major and a musician, and did a lot of stuff on stage at the time, and not anymore. But I remember one day walking in where her piano was, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she had been raising her voice to a certain octave and had been working on it for years to raise her voice by a certain level, so she had a higher voice, okay? And she was like, "You should think about doing this." And my mom just, everybody just does what they know and does the best they can, right? And I was like, I don't think I want to change my voice. I don't think that I want to be any different, And she's like, "Well, you can think about it and decide." And I've gotten a lot of flack throughout the years. People either really, really love my voice and they really resonate with it. Some people say that it's very peaceful for them and calming. Some people say that it's just, they can listen to it and it's soothing. And other people, they come up with all kinds of negative things, I won't go into the barrage of that because we're trying to stay in one section or the other. But I'm saying? It's like, then you have people that will bring you down for that. There's something wrong with you, or what have you. And so it's interesting how that thing, and I know that you have some sort of characteristic as well that's very profound and powerful, very powerful, but you have to be able to hold that as sacred, okay? Even though there will be numerous people who will find fault in what you have to hold as sacred. Because that's just the way life is, right? Because if it was easy and what that was so valuable was loved by everybody, it wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't be a big deal to stand by it and to be that. Because it's easy to hide your authenticity when you feel like you have to. And it's easy to feel like you have to change things to fit in because people comment negatively or adversely or find fault in you based on XYZ. Okay. But when you actually have to stand by something and believe in yourself, when for sometimes some of these situations, it can be completely divided. That is a telltale sign that you're beginning to work on you. But let's go back to the concept of how other people define us, okay? Because I know that I left off on the friends concept. What about the spouses or the significant others? What about that? How often, and I'm sure that many of you watching right now are living with somebody or dating someone, seeing someone, married to someone. Some of you might be married for a long time. Some of you married for a long time. Some of you not married for a long time. Maybe multiple marriages. Doesn't matter. All is fine here. And your spouse or your significant other has its own judgments. They have their own judgments on you, their own definitions of you. Okay. How good are these definitions? How positive are these definitions? How often do you feel like some of those defining things are actually kind of, well, tough and kind of based on their idea of who you are. And some of this could be projection, but also how often are you taking what they're saying for face value? And I want you to think about that too. How often are you taking what they're saying for face value? And how often does what they say to you make you feel good? And how often does what they say to you make you feel bad? Okay, and that's one of the things. I mean, it's a two-way street here, right? We need to watch what we're giving out. We need to watch how we're acting. We need to watch what we're saying. We need to watch how we're dealing with life. We need to make sure that we're not projecting. But I want you to think about this because I've had multiple people say, just in the last, couple days, I feel like I'm this way, or I feel like I'm weird, or I feel like I'm too loud, or I feel like I need to make changes to my life. And I asked them why, and they said, well, because my spouse constantly tells me, because we get back to it, because it takes me a long time to try to figure out where they got this definition. Where did they get I'm too slow definition? Where did they get I'm too weird? Where did they get the I'm too loud, or I get on people's nerves? Where does this come from? And I said, where does this come from? And when we finally realized it, they're like, oh, I guess it's because my wife or my husband says it to me all the time. And I just kind of figured I was. And it's interesting how we don't realize, even something as small as like, hey, you're really irritating, or hey, can you lower your voice a little bit? How that can really cause someone to question themselves. It was interesting. I was at a dinner a while back, and a friend of mine came up, and when they came up to say hi to me, I could barely hear them. I was like, hi, and they're like, hey, it's good to see you. And I was like, it's good to see you too. And I was like, is everything okay? I mean, is something wrong with your throat? Is something wrong? And they were like, oh no, I'm just trying to be quieter. I realized that I speak too loud. And I was like, really? I was like, why? And they're like, oh, it's just been brought to my attention. And this person had literally come from being a very kind of powerful person to almost like this mousy type person was in front of me. And I was thinking, what's going on? And then going back to it, and I didn't want to pry, but later on I found out, that their significant other was saying that all the time to them at the house. You need to calm down. You're too loud. You're annoying. You're getting on my nerves. You're acting like you're a child, that sort of thing. You just gotta bring it down a notch. And I think that a lot of us are occupying our brain with these situations, right? And I gotta turn the heat down in here. Ooh, lordy. We do it right here. This automation thing is great. Okay, perfect. Got it. So I was like, doggone it, it's getting hot in here. It's getting hot in here. I was like, oh, even though I have my jacket on, but I like my jacket. I'm gonna wear my jacket. I like the color of it. So yay. So I want you to start thinking about how much of your life is defined by what other people have said. How much of your life is defined by what other people have said about you? How much of your life, and go back to try to figure out where it started at. I always find that interesting. Because it's like, did it start with the bully in elementary school? Did it start with a sister or brother, that's challenging to deal with? Did it start with somebody that you were raised around? Did it start by one of your frenemies, enemies? And it's like, why would we want to be defined by that crap our whole life? And that's the thing, is like, we don't realize that it came from that situation. We don't realize that. And that's the thing. That's from A to B. And it's like, I don't want to be defined by that turd my whole life. I mean, it is what it is. But we have to realize where it began. And we have to get into the recesses to realize that this is not our own thought. This was put on us. This is not our own definition. Now, I will jump into another little concept that's connected directly to this concept. And that is that a lot of us have made personal judgment on ourselves. We self-sabotage ourselves every day. We believe that we're not good enough. We believe that we're not smart enough. We're not creative enough. We're not a good enough artist. We're not a good enough writer. We're not a good enough worker. We're not a good enough money maker. We're not a good enough spouse. We're not a good enough parent. We really do good on beating ourselves up. We are very, very, very good at it. We do it better than anybody else. Seriously. The only person that can beat themselves up is themselves. Everybody else can beat you up too. But I mean, you're standing in line first with the first punch, and that punch is from your right hand or your left hand. It's very interesting. So what's that about? And I think that that's a combination of, the subconscious thoughts from other people defining us, plus the thoughts that we created subsequently, offshoots of those thoughts, right? Because the original thought had to start out, right? So the kind of the offshoots of those thoughts, and that's all interesting because that original thought, that was created, then goes into us, and we start saying, oh, and then we kind of like have like little offshoots of versions of that thought, and then that starts to take over our brain. And so then we don't even realize, so subconsciously we act on those thoughts, right? That's always interesting. And we act on those thoughts, we react by those thoughts. And then when we feel that way about ourselves, it colors how other people talk or how other people ask about us or how other people are around us, right? Because if I feel like I'm questioning my ability and I have these offshoots of thoughts that I am not capable of doing something, and I genuinely believe that based on what other people told me about myself, based on me owning that, based on my subconscious, and then when somebody comes to talk to me about something, I'm going to assume that they believe that too. And I'm going to act that way. And that's what I want you to kind of get into that thought process, is that it's all that coding that we got to get to in the program of the recesses of our brain to realize what is being coded and what's coming out the back end of that, meaning our actions, our choices. All actions and all choices are a direct spawn of our thoughts. Okay, so the thought is like the embryo, right? And then the baby is the action. Well, here we go. What was first, the chicken or the egg, right? But it's like the thought came first, then the action or the inaction. Let's not forget that. A lot of us are like, I ain't going to do anything. Every time I do something, I make a bad choice. I'm going to do nothing for right now. Inaction is my friend. Okay. Other times what we do is we make choices that hurt us. We step back. We decide that we're not the right person for XYZ. We feel like other people are better than us. We feel, whatever that looks like. And so these are things that I want you to think about. How much do you worry about that? How much do you think about that? How much do you basically define yourself based on past identities that other people put on you? And it's like an onion. We got to take off these layers. We were fine in the very beginning as a baby. Coming out of that womb, we were fine. We were perfect. Didn't need anything else. We were great. But then all of a sudden something happened and everybody started putting stuff on us. Okay. Good, bad, and different. Positive, not so positive, neutral. All on top of us, right? And then all of a sudden that little baby that was perfect now becomes all this stuff. All this crap. And it's interesting. It's almost like when people paint over and over and over and over and over and over and over again on a canvas, right? They keep painting on top of it, painting on top of it. They put a layer, then they paint on top of that. They put a layer, then they paint on top of that, because that's what they would do back in the day a lot of times. They didn't have enough money to buy canvas, right? And then you'll see like some of the most originals where they had like, there was painting behind it. They would clean it and they'd see, oh, there's a painting behind that. Right? So it's like, okay. So that's kind of what we are. But we're the very original, we're the original piece of canvas. And now there's layers on top of it. And we have to get back to that original layer. And yeah, some of the things that people say about us is good. But again, when we let that define us, it kind of takes me into this next little course of thought, is how much do we worry about what other people think about us? Da, da, da. Da, da, da. How much do we worry about what other people think? And you know what? Come on. Most of us worry about it. Most of us worry about it. I mean, I think we mostly worry about it. I think that most people worry about what other people think about them. And I would like to say that we don't, but I mean, we're kind of raised to believe that. We're kind of raised to believe, oh, it's important what other people think. I get it. I'm not saying that we should all go run around naked and go crazy and just let everybody just, go to hell. But at the same time, I feel like when we worry about what other people think about us, right, we get ourselves in a predicament. That predicament actually limits us from what we can do. You know what I'm saying? You've been somewhere, I'm sure this has happened multiple times, where you're having a good time. Maybe, you're having a good time, you're hanging out, and all of a sudden it's just that clicks in about what other people are thinking about you. And you change. You get stealthy, you change, you worry about what other people think, you kind of look around. I don't want to put myself out there too much, right? And sometimes we're not even ourselves because we're so worried. What if our original us, what if my inner child is not fully accepted? Because I've realized that the more wise you are, the more young you are. Okay. Because I think I wasn't like book smart, at 5. But I think that, being as close to the source as possible the younger you are is true. And so it's like the younger you are at heart, the more connected to your inner child you are, the more you're able to be who you are, the more you're able to illuminate who you are and not hide yourself and actually be authentic and work to do that. Even if it means that you might not fit in. Even if it means that somebody might make fun of you. Even if it means that somebody's talking behind your back. Even if it means when you walk by, they're like, that's horrible, isn't it? When you walk by, people like looking at you, and next thing you know, they kind of look at you and they laugh. It's hard to think that they're not talking about you. Most of the time, they're not. It just looks like that, right? But you know why we think that they're talking about us? Because they are. No, I'm just kidding. You know why you think that they're talking about you is because you're already in your thoughts thinking, you know what? They're making fun of me. They're making fun of me. And, even if they are, who gives a hell? But we got to get to that point of, not giving. And that's the thing. It's like we have to get to the point of not accepting that, not really caring about that. But you see how if we feel like other people are constantly judging us and we feel like that way for a long time, when we have a situation like that, it can be overwhelming. I mean, if you've ever walked into a room and you're feeling down upon yourself and you're feeling stressed out and you're feeling insecure and you walk into a room of a lot of people, and right when you walk in the room, if you're a guy, there's like 3 men standing over looking at him, it's kind of like looking at you, like giving you the rolling eye. Or you walk in and you're a woman and there's, women standing around and they just start laughing and kind of looking in your general direction. It's kind of not so good. It doesn't feel good. You question yourself. You kind of like slink on by and kind of find a place over by the wall somewhere, or sit at a table and just kind of hide. Now, if you're not thinking negatively about yourself, or you're not worried about yourself, you probably don't even see that happening. And if you do, you don't care. But see, it's all based on these definitions of how we're defined. And so I really want you to think about that right now. I want you to think about, are there some ways that you're being defined in your subconscious that no longer works for you? No longer works. And, the only way you can really get to that is to do some inventory work. And that's something that I really work with all my clients, because there's no way around that. There's no way around it, And it's like drinking coffee. You got to drink out of a cup. There's no way around it. I don't know about you, but unless you're drinking iced coffee and you're only going to get a little bit in your hand, you got to drink in a cup. So we got to get to it. And the cup is what's housing this stuff. What's housing these stuff are these thoughts. These thoughts have to be inventoried. You can't overlook that. And so, it's interesting if you start journaling and writing just some stuff real quick. You can do it. Just think about what I'm talking about right now. And I know that some people go, I hate journaling. I hate writing. I hate doing this. I get it. I'm not saying that this is fun. But what I am saying is that you have to take some time out for you. You got to take some time to do something for you. And this is doing something for you that can better your life, impact your life, and allow you to get to know yourself even better than you've ever known yourself. I'll say it before, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Most people know the people that they met on a dating site for 5 minutes. They know them better than themselves. When they texted somebody for 5, 10, 15 minutes, texted somebody for a whole day and realized, he knew more about them than you know about you. Okay, so the more we get to know about ourselves and actually respect knowing and learning about ourselves, well, it changes the whole dynamic. All of a sudden, I begin to see myself as a friend of myself. I begin to realize my value. I begin to see my value clearly. I, as a human being, realize that I, as a human being, value me. Okay. See, most of us make the choice of showing everybody else that we value them, listening to everybody else about what they love and what they don't love, and their values and who they are and what they want to be, but we don't really think or work on us. And that's what I want you to do, because I know the value in you, but you need to see the value in you. And then in order to really see the real value, we have to get through this inventory of some of these defining moments that should not ever be defining you. And I know we all have them because you're human and you're on this planet. There's no way you dodged it. It's not. I mean, there might be one or two of you that lived in a bubble and it worked, but no, not really. Because there's always someone that finds fault. There's always someone that tells us who we are. There's always someone that, even if it's in a positive way, like, I've worked with clients before where, their dad was a doctor, they became a doctor. Dad was an accountant, they became an accountant, and they hated it. They hated every moment of it. Because when they were growing up, dad was like, you're going to be the greatest doctor too, just like me. Or you're going to be the greatest accountant just like me. And so they grew up and they became just like dad. And guess what? They are not just like dad, and they don't want to do it. And so they had like a real epiphany. This sucks. And so for years in their life, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And eventually they came around and they're like, oh my God, why did I do this? I did this because I was told that I'm supposed to do this. I did this because this is what I thought. This is what I was told my whole life to be. And that's the key. And that's why it's so powerful to do this work. Because this could be something as simple as that you're doing something day in and day out that you don't like. It's not rewarding to you. It's not part of your belief system. It's not part of your direction. You don't want it anymore. But you're like, how did I get here in the first place? Well, you got here because guess what? And I understand. You listen to a family member tell you who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be, and you did it. And then you're here holding the bag going, oh, God, I don't want to do this. I've been doing this for 15 years. I hate it. So there's a lot of things that we are going to come to fruition. And there's a lot of things that are going to come to the front of our brain as we work on this to understand, wow, how did I get to where I am? How did I get here? See, that's what a lot of people talk about, the midlife crises, right? It's like we haven't dealt with the inventory. And all of a sudden one day we're like, bam, oh my God, what happened to my life? Oh my God, I'm doing everything I don't want to do. I mean, my whole life is like falling apart. I never dreamed that this was going to be my life. That's what the midlife crisis is. Because it's a crisis because we don't know how we got there. It's a crisis because we're overwhelmed with the fact of what we haven't done. That's where the crises come in, right? Why go through the crises? Because that's painful, because anybody that's in crisis, we make bad choices usually. We jump to conclusions. We do things sporadically. And throughout the process, well, we hope we get away with it unscathed. But it takes that knowledge base of understanding ourselves and saying, okay, this is really what's happening. I went down a road and I was kind of convinced that this was the road I should go down, but I was convinced by all these other people what I should do. But I wasn't really listening to my heart. I wasn't listening to where I wanted to be. I wasn't connecting with that because I didn't know what that was. Because I had never been told that I should listen to my heart. I had never been told that I should make decisions. I had never been told that it's okay to screw up and try and screw up and try and fall down and try again. I never knew it was okay, to believe in myself. Some of you out there believing in everybody else this whole time and propping other people up and helping them. And when it came to you, you're like, oh, I can't put money into that. I can't do that. I can't focus on that hobby. That's a hobby. I can't do that. So we've been propping everybody else up, but we haven't been putting that work behind us. That's the thing. It's like we don't have that belief system in ourselves. Everybody else can do that. It's not me. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane. Many of us are scared of screwing up. We're scared of failing. God, the fear of failure. Come on. I mean, that's the biggest bag over the head. It's the biggest self-sabotaging thing we have, right? This fear of failure. I mean, I get it. Shit, I've been there before, but it sucks because what happens is that we get so scared of failing, we don't do anything. And if we do it small. Because if I do it small, nobody will see it if I really screw up. Right? And if I don't talk about it, nobody knows about it. I can just, how did that go? Oh, yeah, I changed focal points. I'm not working on that, And it's interesting because it's like we want to go big or we want to go home. But it's like you can't go big unless you believe. And I'm not talking about narcissistic belief. I'm not talking about crazy belief, where, I'm not talking about that inflated belief. I'm talking about we got to believe somehow that we have it within us to do what we need to do. We have it within us to be who we need to be. We have it within us to be okay with what happens. And I think that a lot of times too, and this is kind of the big thing that I want you to think about. Opportunity is very interesting. Opportunity is a very interesting word. Because opportunity means that something, it's an opportunity. There's something for you in it, right? There's something you're going to get from it. Well, okay, there's something you're going to get from it. What about the word no? What about the word yes? And I'm going to be talking a lot about this here for a while, and this right now, and for some upcoming videos that we're going to work on this afternoon. I want you to think about how often when you hear the word no, it makes you feel bad. And when somebody says no to you, how it's like, oh, it can make you crumble. And how we are literally brainwashed to believe that yes is like the golden word. Yes is the end all be all to life success. Oh my God, I got a yes. Oh, yes, yes. And none of us go, oh yeah, they said no. Yes, no. It's more like, yeah, they said no. Oh God. Oh God. And I want you to think about the last time someone said no to you. Get it in your brain. Think about that situation. The last time that something wasn't given to you, the last time that you were looked over for something, the last time that someone said that they weren't going to do something. I want you to think about how that felt. But why do we feel that way about no? Why can't no sometimes be a good thing? I find it interesting when I look back at situations in the past, possible business partnerships, other things like that in the past, where somebody said no. I remember I was like, oh, God, that hurts. But I look back now and I realize, thank God, that did not come to pass. And I want you to think about how that plays a role in our brain. How often when you hear the word yes, it fires you up? How often when you hear the word no, it puts you down in the tailspin? Takes you days maybe to get out of it. Sometimes weeks. It can really give us a low self-esteem. It can connect with that subconscious thoughts, right? That go back to the thing of it's never going to work for me. I'm not good enough. Oh, it must be something wrong with me. Okay, so they're picking up on some, deficiency I have. I got to figure that out. If it wasn't for that, they would have said yes. Everything would have been great. I just needed that yes. I really needed that acceptance. I really needed that agreement. I've been there on that side of the coin for a while too. I got it. Opportunity. And so the reason why I want to keep us in the groove here at this day and time doing this live feed. And that's why I went on and did the live feed today, even though Notre Dame is playing. during the show. And I also thought that this will give us a conversation today with no commercials. And the reason why we have commercials is radio has commercials. There's local and national spots, right? I can't eliminate those when we're doing the show live. I can maybe hush them a little bit sometimes. But I want you to think about opportunity. I want you to think about what I've offered in today's live feed is an opportunity to learn about yourself. It's an opportunity to open the mind and to realize, okay, I am valuable and I deserve to be understood. I deserve to be explored, right? I mean, exploring yourself is such a big deal, but very rarely do we explore ourselves. We explore other people. We explore locales all over the globe. I mean, think about it. One of the last explored places on the planet. One of the last explored places on the planet is you. Everything else, I think, has been explored. I think we've gone all over the globe to the extremes and the extremes. I mean, you know, why are we waiting to explore the thing that we have right here? Why are we waiting? Why wait? That's the question. Why wait? The longer we wait, the more we regret, but we don't do it until it's late in our life, and then we realize, holy crap. You know, it's like, look, it's like it's always been right here. It's like looking for the Holy Grail and realize it's been sitting on your desk the whole time. I've looked all over the world for it. I've gone everywhere. I've walked miles. It's right here the whole time. So I want you to think about that. And I want you to use this as an opportunity to get to know who you are. I want you to use an opportunity to start writing out some of your thoughts in your head to really take this to the next level. I want you to really think about what that means. And when you get a chance, because the subconscious and the thoughts that have been put into our brain are definitely important. But also, if you are being projected on in real time right now, that can also be very painful and confusing. And one of the big things is that projection to me is manipulation. It's also gaslighting as well. And I think that when we are being projected upon, a lot of times it is so confusing, but it begins to play on us in our subconscious. And so I need you to be aware of that. Check out that video when you get a chance. Also, check out the website, ashleyburgess.com, ashleyburgess.com. If you'd like to work with me, you can set up an appointment right there online. And also check out the latest website, the 10daychallenge.com, the with the number 10, the number 10day challenge, the 10daychallenge.com. It's got all the master classes up there so far. We're actually finishing up our third master class here. Should be done in the next 2 weeks. And so that'll be up soon. I'm talking about that. I can't wait. So that'll be fun. But in the meantime, connecting with those thoughts that you've had for a long time, some of the positive ones, some of the negative ones, some of the neutral ones, and figuring out where they began. Because some of these have got to be eliminated. We should no longer be defined by these thoughts in our life. And some of those people that defined us are just boneheads. Why would we want to continue having that and not letting that go? Because remember, it's like that paint. It's like that canvas. We got to get through all this stuff to find the original piece, the most valuable piece that's on the very back. That's what we're looking for. So I don't know what people use, usually turpentine or whatever, to clean it, and they find it and they go, oh my God, look at this masterpiece. You are the masterpiece. We got to find it. And we got to be able to get through all those layers of things that no longer serve us, right? And so that's what today's show is about. And so I'd love to hear from you in the comments here, and then the live feed. And I hope that everybody's enjoyed the show today, or the conversation.
Yeah, we're getting some good comments. Should I read some?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, Rabbit Hole Bill says that you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbit Hole Bill. I like the name, by the way.
Yeah, we
Yeah, okay, we got some questions.
Okay, so same rabbit hole Bill said, my ex is now projecting on our 11-year-old son. He blames himself, and it's very hard to coach him. Do you have any ideas?
Okay, so the spouse is projecting on the son, and the son's blaming himself.
Yeah, and it's very hard to coach him.
Oh, that's challenging. Yeah, that's challenging. Remember, and how old is the child?
11, you said?
Oh gosh, 11 was a good age. 10 was a good age. God, be young. Okay, I'm young at heart though, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, so that's a great question. Okay, so first off, remember the negative thoughts that we have about ourselves. For some reason, when somebody says something negative about us, we actually accept that, like a lot more than somebody saying something positive. So you're going to have to probably work with him one on one and be able to float the positive. You're gonna have to build him up, but not in a way that he really understands it, but in a way that you're repeating and repeating over and over again in different ways the same thing to build this child up. Okay. Another thing too is that sometimes you have to just point out the obvious. Kids are smart. Like a lot of children, like a lot of parents will say, well, I don't want my kids to know that we're going to get a divorce. Well, usually, not saying all the time, but usually in situations where parents are going to get a divorce, the kids already know. The idea of hiding this is it's because they're connected. They get it. They see things. They're aware. So a lot of times being able to be honest and say, and taking, your child and having some good moments, maybe taking to get some ice cream or hanging out or playing catch or doing something and just being like, hey, and just kind of stating, maybe some of the observations of your spouse, not in a negative way, but being able to explain maybe what that is, or maybe being able to understand the influence of that, or maybe being able to explain some of the insecurities that the other person is having. Because when you're honest with a child, it's kind of like when a child is being raised in an environment where one parent is trying to take care of everything because the other parent can't manage, right? Maybe they're having some breakdowns of some sort and what have you. When we try to hide it under the rug and we try to act like it doesn't exist, it becomes a bigger issue, right? So sometimes we just have to call it out in a positive way, in a loving way. In those situations when people say, well, we're trying to hide the fact that my spouse is having kind of a breakdown and we're having to go through this and we're having to go to therapy and we're having to go to rehab. And it's like, why are we hiding this? Sometimes we have to come out and say, well, they're dealing with this and we're all behind them 100%, or this is what's really happening, because a child needs to know what's really happening. We have to be very honest. We have to be transparent. We don't want to throw the other person under the bus, but yet I've always found that the truth is the best policy if it can be crafted in a way where you can also explain a little bit maybe of, this is why I feel that it's being said, this is why you don't want to take it personally. Okay. And you're going to have to be very repetitive. You can't just do this one time, because the kid is going to want to grasp onto that negativity and also won't know what the truth is. So you have to constantly be the voice of truth and the voice of reason. And so I wish I could say you can say it one and done, but this is going to be something that you're probably going to have to do until your spouse stops projecting and realizes that they are not self-aware. But self-awareness is a big thing too. And sometimes we have to say, hey, what's happening here is that they're believing X, Y, Z, and that's okay, but they're unaware of their situation. And that's why they're saying this to you. So, and also I think it's just the right thing to do. And I know it's hard, but being consistent with that and taking them together to do things as well and having fun around the event while you're explaining the truth can be very powerful.
Wow, that is really powerful.
Thank
I
you.
love that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Repetition.
Repetition is key. That's why Geico has so many clients. How many times do you hear a Geico commercial in one day on a TV? That's why they do it. That's why. That's why radio does repetitive commercials. That's why when you normally hear me on this, when we're doing radio, that's why the commercials are repetitive, to get you to do it. That's why they do that. They say if you hear it like 6 times or 12 times or as many times as you hear it, you're more apt to follow through. And to believe it.
Very true.
And that's why if somebody is saying negative things, you have to be able to recount that by the others. But, if somebody's messing with somebody, you have to really make sure that you're there constantly, and you got to be the bigger voice of reason, and you got to be more consistent to offset the other. And then also, you probably need to have a conversation with your spouse.
Kind of like putting like armor on yourself.
Exactly. It's a good image.
Cool. Yeah, we got S Kang here saying, "Wow, Doc, hi, big fan of you.
Thank
Your
you.
videos help me a lot, especially getting over a BPDX."
Nice.
Uh,
I'm proud of you, by the way. Good job. Very good job.
yeah. Vicky Masterson having a thought here. I recognize and try to always plant good seeds of thought into my children now that I'm aware. My eldest has been through a lot, labeled with autism, trying to fit in. He closes himself off and avoids. So I commented back saying, "That's rough, Vicky. It's crazy how impactful labels can be in our lives. Being more aware of our thoughts, actions, and what we say is paramount."
Very good comment too. And thank you so much, Vicky, right?
Yeah, Vicky.
Thank you, Vicky. And who was the comment before too?
S Kang.
Thank you. Thank you so much. S. Kane.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your comment.
Yeah. S Kang also asked, because I asked him what are some questions that you might have for topics,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, uh, something about recovering from a borderline ex and how to work on one's shadow and live a true life.
That's a good one. Recovering from one's ex and dealing with shadow work. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. We'll work on that for sure.
Yeah.
I like that. I'll write that down.
Yeah, Rock and Roberta saying, "Let's give Ashley a big thumbs up."
Oh, thank you, Rock and Roberta. I appreciate you. Good to hear from you.
7C99ND2EL asks, will this live stream be posted for anyone to view at any time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Live stream will be posted for anybody to view at any time. Yes.
Sure will.
We will be doing a members only live stream as well. I don't know exactly what time that is, but yes, this one will always be up every Saturday, unless for some reason, it's like a major holiday or something or whatever. But we will be up, and then we're going to do another one to a Q&A here soon as well. We haven't scheduled that for members because we just got the join button option a month or so ago, and we're trying to still hammer out all the details on that too. So that was a good question. Thank you.
Says, "Shout outs to Ashley for keeping it real. Big ups from the 403.
Awesome. I appreciate it from the 403. Thank you. I appreciate that message. It's great.
Yeah. And we have one more question. It said, I have a hard time finding a balance between worrying about what everyone thinks and not worrying at all and being completely indifferent. I find I do reckless things."
Good question. So worrying about so extreme of either worrying about what everybody thinks or not worrying about anything and just kind of being reckless.
Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of times when we just don't worry about anything or we kind of go the other angle, the other way, I think it's rebellion. So I feel like when we rebel, we're rebelling because we feel like somebody has something on us or they're strangling us. Like we wouldn't rebel if we didn't feel like somebody had power over us, right? It's like being a kid at your house and you feel like you have, when you were growing up and you felt like you had no power, or, a lot of people would say that they would sneak out of the house, they would rebel, they would do crazy things, they would go drink, they would take the car out, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like, I think that maybe the thing that you want to look at in this situation is, how much does worrying what other people think kind of control your life? But I also think how much do you feel like you're being controlled? And I think you want to think about that because if you're being controlled, one of the things that we do is we want to rebel, right? I mean, we want to rebel. And so it's like, think about who is controlling or who do you feel is controlling in your life? Is there a main character? Are there multiple people? Do you feel like a lot of the people around you are trying to tell you how to act, be, live all the time? If that's the case, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. Also, one little snippet of information here. It's not always, because sometimes we can just live around a lot of controlling jackasses, okay? People that think that they can control us. Now, remember, a lot of people that control... Okay, one of the main Okay, one of the main caveats when people are controlling is they're controlling. Why? When they're controlling of other people. They're controlling because they feel out of control in their own life. Okay. Have you ever been, and this is not everybody, but this is a lot. Have you ever been to someone's house where you pick up something and literally you put it down and the person moves it right into the exact same place that it was and inches it over by 2 inches, and it's kind of creepy. Have you ever been in that situation? Nothing against OCD, just saying. And everything has to be right in its place. Now, some people are just, they like things neat. Other people, though, it's about control. If I can control everything in my environment, then I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable because I feel out of control. And so I want you to start looking at the people around you. How controlled are you? Are you still being controlled by family dynamics? Are you controlled by a boyfriend, a girlfriend? Are you controlled by, friends, family? Because that's the thing that makes us rebel when we're tired of the control. And the control can be very undercover. And the more controlling people are, the more manipulative it can be if it's going under the radar. And you're going to have to get really, really mindful to be able to really catch this. Because mind control and control can be very smart, and it can be deployed in a way that doesn't feel like control, but yet, why would you want to rebel if you don't feel like you're being controlled? And so I want you to think about that. And I want you to look at the people around you. Are they so far out of control, but they're hiding it? I mean, most people hide it, right? They're really good at hiding it. They can hide being out of control because they seem to have it all together. Okay? They don't have it all together. And that's something that's big. And also the other thing is the adverse judgment of thinking that other people have it all together and you don't. That's a good one too. It's like the self-sabotage that keeps on giving. It's like we feel like people have it all together, and so we look at them and we see them in their Instagram and stuff, and it looks like they have it all together. We see them in person, they're dressed completely perfectly. They seem to have it all together, and they don't. But we judge ourselves and be like, man, we're out of control. We need to fix our lives. And so think about it. Why are you rebelling? And maybe doing some journaling on that could be very powerful. Analyzing the people you're around, figuring out who's controlling you, what are they trying to control? And if you go directly to the rebelling, you might actually see the connection, and understand the direct correlation. So I hope that that's helped.
Awesome, I love that. So Desperante said, Ashley, your roommate situation vid, it felt like you talked directly to me.
Desperado, yay! Okay, I'm glad that you connected with that video. The roommate situation is real. So a lot of people are feeling it right now. And because of the COVID situation and everybody having to be, in kind of tight circumstances now, at least since March, I mean, a lot of it's letting up right now. But I think it really put a spotlight on marriage because it's been so easy to go to the office and everybody leave and do their thing and then come home at dinner and only see each other for a couple hours and rinse and repeat. And now it's like, whoa, what happened? And so I'm glad that connected with you. I know that we had a second one that was out about a year ago. And then I know we just did one recently. And then I know that I did a live feed talking about that in marriage. I think it was either last week or the week before.
Yeah.
And so let me know about that. And I'm working with folks really helping, single and, as far as individual or couples to really get to that conversation. Because the issue here is everybody's got a program. And so we're interfacing with their program, and that's why the roommate situation, because we've created these boundaries or we've created these walls, or we decided that we can't get intimate anymore for whatever reason, or we have resentment or anger or water under the bridge and all those programs. Woo! And so that's one of the things is like, it's trying to figure out that program, trying to figure out why am I in this situation, and then the interface between those two programs. Because that's what the roommate situation has become, right? Is the two programs have been created over time. Both people having a lot of responsibilities and work, whatever, but also, the different things that we're holding back, or the and the communication breakdown is all based upon that program. So I really am glad that this connected with you. And it's the awareness of that can actually change the situation in a positive way, and it definitely can be augmented for sure.
Yeah. A couple more comments here.
Okay.
From Carrie Friedman, you're amazing. You're changing my life today, and I'm sure millions of others. Kind of things.
Carrie, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love your comment. Thank you. And I appreciate you tuning in. And definitely, if you can, share it with anybody that you think might be interested. And we've been growing the channel. Just keep trying to do it. And if you want to, please share. And if you have any ideas of content that you would like me to focus on, I definitely will. We just want to get to as many folks as possible, because it's all about this whole concept. The reason why I do this is because, I really just want to help everyone to really see who they are and their value, and to eliminate the crap that no longer serves us in our life, and also to really just see our value. That's the whole reason why we're here. We hear about purpose, but purpose is really ourselves. That's the purpose of being here, is to love and cherish and to figure that out, and to get in there and figure that. That's what purpose is. So that's what I'm doing. I'm actually going to be hopefully starting something to work with younger age folks too, and I'll be once that's done and ready to go. I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch, but once that's done, I want to come up and also do a talk. I want to just unveil that here live too and talk about it, and would love everybody's involvement in that. So thank you so much for your message. It means a lot.
One more question that's kind of related to the first one with the child.
Okay.
So 7C9ND2EL says, I have a stepson who believes he is worthless because the people he relied on when he was a child failed him. How do I help him with this?
Okay.
It's kind of related to that first question.
Okay, repeat that.
Yeah, so he said, I have a stepson who believes he's worthless because the people he relied on when he was a child failed him. How do I help him with this?
Okay, stepchild feels worthless because the people he relied on as a child failed him. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think this is how I would open up if I was you. So remember when we're raised, when we're born, right? We show up, most of us, most of us are born in a hospital. These parents are giants, they're huge, and we're like, this little baby, this little peanut. And we look at these people as gods, right? Because they're huge. I mean, even if your mom is 4 foot, she's still huge compared to you as a peanut. Mm-hmm. And when our people let us down with titles that are mom and dad, or, the people that were surrounding them, they had these titles and they're supposed to take care of them. So they feel like, why am I valuable if I wasn't taken care of? Something was wrong with me, or something's not good enough with me, or they didn't do this because I wasn't good enough. The example I like to use is that when mom or dad leaves, when a kid is young, and the kid can't understand why mom or dad left, and then the other parent's taking care of them solely, and they're just like, God. It's not that they think about, oh, well, mom and dad had a fight and they don't get along. It's about, it's the kid says, well, I must not be good enough or my dad would be here. Or I must not be a good enough son, or I must not be a good enough daughter, otherwise my parent would be here. Obviously, I'm just not worthy. And so and that's the sad thing, is it's like, it was those other people's issues. And I think a lot of us live by that. And I think a lot of us can connect with your question. So it's like bringing up the fact that, and I think maybe even going from the standpoint of, a lot of us have trials and tribulations when we're young, and a lot of us have to go through a lot of problems and issues when we're young. And some of us who have to go through extreme problems and issues when we're young obviously have a big thing that we're supposed to do here on this planet, because overcoming those obstacles are a big thing. So I would explain the fact that their inability to step up to the plate and live by their title is not this child's issue. And you'll have to explain that the fact that they couldn't do it doesn't mean that he or she's not valuable. It just means that they were incapable of doing their duty. I also would probably say that, a lot of people that are having children are children themselves. And unfortunately, we do not have a test before people have children. We have a test to get a driver's license, but we don't have a test to take before you have a child, which is absolutely absurd. With that in mind, that is something that I would say. The other thing is that I would also go from the fact that, kind of go from the hero position. Because, there has to be something. If you look at all heroes, right? Like Spider-Man, for example. You think about like heroes, like, fictitious heroes. Go with me on this. The Lord of the Rings. Bilbo Baggins and all these different. I can't remember his name. Is it Bilbo? No. Who's the guy that's got to carry the? I'm trying to think of the Hobbit. Frodo. Everybody goes through these crazy things in their life, and they have to overcome it. And they have to overcome their fear. And I found that the more chaotic or painful or toxic somebody's life was, if they can overcome it and see their value, they can change the world. So that's where I would ground my conversation and go from there. Because I think it's true. I think that perfection as a child, been given a perfect life as a child is well, it's not ever going to happen. But if it had gotten close to that, where was the pain? Where was everything has gray areas? Where is the learning process in that? And unfortunately, some of us fall prey to drugs and alcohol. Some of us fall prey to suicide because we can't overcome that. But I think that if you can have that conversation and just kind of have it from that hero position, but also examine the fact that people don't always live up to their titles. And it's like, I work with clients too that, have problems with the mom and dad dynamic. And I say, what's mom or dad's first name? Change that number in your phone from dad or mom to the first name. They don't deserve the title. Why do you give them that much title? Because see, that also hurts because they didn't live up to that. Right? So why did they not live up to that? Is it because I wasn't a good enough kid? No, it's because they couldn't live up to that. So take the title off, call it Ann, call it John. And so that's where I would go with that. I hope it helps, but definitely come from the hero position on the back end. And I think but you're going to have to do it a lot because it's probably been ingrained. So, remember, pathways are ingrained. We gotta just ingrain some new pathways, and so let's see what happens. I believe that you can do this. Good question.
I love that.
Good question.
Yeah, that's it for questions.
Awesome. Okay, well, I love the questions, and I appreciate y'all asking them, and I hope that they've helped. And it's just life is interesting, and everything is an opportunity. And all these questions that y'all have asked and having these communications with these folks are all going to be opportunities, even though they might be challenging. Nobody said that opportunities aren't challenging sometimes, but there'll be an opportunity for you to grow and an opportunity for them to grow. And that's what's going to be so powerful. So I look forward to it. We'll be back next Saturday. We will be on the air next Saturday doing the show live here. So there will be commercials. I'll see if I can silence some of them. Sometimes it's nice to be able to have a non-talk break for a minute or two. But I'm used to it because on the radio sometimes we would lose the feed or lose, the ability to go to commercial, and you'd have to go. And sometimes the shows were 2 and 3 hours. So you just have to talk and talk and talk. No dead air. No dead air. Yeah, I had a 3-hour show for a long time. But nowadays I think people like smaller doses, not necessarily, but maybe. I don't know. That's what they tell you, right? The ADD hour. So, and go on and add some more comments if you have some, also on any sort of video content that you would like to be created as well. And check out the website, ashleyburgess.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to join the members only area, that'd be great. We're going to do probably a live communication where, and I got to schedule it for members as well. It's going to separate from this because this is always going to be at this time live. But it'll be like kind of a Q&A thing. So probably, like a 30, 45 minute, and then I can take some questions direct, personal questions, what have you. And I don't know how all that's set up. But more information, if you push the join button, you can find out a little bit more about what we're doing there, and we're keeping we keep adding content to that too. But just appreciate y'all if you don't mind sharing this, or or following or joining the page, or subscribing is awesome. So thank you so much. And I look forward to next Saturday. Also, if you're not already, I'm on Facebook. So love for the follow on Facebook, on Instagram, and definitely on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. So anyway, okay, have a great one. Let me know how you're doing. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We're going to be here at the office for a while. We got to do some interviews later. I got an interview out of Australia. So we got that going on too. And look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. Love you. God bless you, and have a good one. Take care. Bye, y'all.